Hey, hello Michael. My name is Augustine, and I'm a social worker here. How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there.
Well, it's very nice to meet you. Can I ask what brings you here today?
Well, I've been having some stress lately with my mother-in-law, who currently, is having some memory issues.
So, you're coming in here today. Is it for you or your mother-in-law? You're a little bit of both.
It's a little bit of both, but mainly trying to get some support and some guidance as to how to go about, interacting with a person who's elderly and who's losing their memory and,
Gotcha. Well, before we get started, I just want to talk to you about a couple things. First and foremost, everything that happens here is 100% confidential. You know what that means?
Go ahead and explain it to me.
Basically, what that means is everything you say here will not be repeated or not go beyond these walls, but there are a couple exceptions to that. One of those is if you talk about harming yourself or others. The other one is if I hear anything to deal with harm to children. You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, well, let's go on. So you're having some problems with, is it your mother-in-law?
Yeah, my mother-in-law, she's been on oxygen for a while, and she's had a lot of issues. But basically, it's depleting her memory and her her oxygen level to the brain, and she's sometimes become frustrated because she can't remember, or she's remembered in a negative light. It just doesn't always work well.
Oh, so how are you coping with that?
Day to day, I mean, most times I don't try to remind her anymore of, certain things. I don't try to put that in her face anymore, because that's what leads to the frustration or anger, because she thinks I'm trying to be Mr. Know-it-all, or I'm trying to put it in her face when I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure, it's Tuesday. That sort of thing,
So let me get this right. I'm hearing that there's some stress there or some tension between you and your mother. I don't want to get that wrong, so.
A little bit. Her and I have both really strong personalities, and putting the whole memory loss factor in it, sometimes we bump heads, especially when she's told me she wants to have things done a different way, and I do it that way, and then she says, well, how come you don't do it this way? The opposite of what she just said, and then I have to go through the whole way. You said you this, and sometimes she'll say, just because I said it then doesn't mean it has to be the same way every time, or I have the right to change my mind. Just something to deflect the whole issue of her memory.
So, how long has she had these memory issues?
She's had them for the last 5-6 years. They weren't as strong as they were now. I mean, she's not at the level where she's diagnosable, where she, on dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. But she just has a lot of short-term memory loss. Forgetting what she ate, or whether she took some for meds. Some of that stuff.
So, do you guys live together? What's your guys' situation?
Yeah, we live together with her and her spouse, and my husband and I. We all share a house together.
So there's 4 of you guys.
Yeah.
Oh man, I commend you on that. That's not a lot of people can live with their in-laws. You know what I mean? That's very, tough situation, and that's very cool or good of you to be able to deal with that.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, because there's a lot of stressors that go on, dealing with that, and me still going to school at the same time and work, and yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I bet. So how are you doing, with your health and everything, and how do you manage with everything?
I manage as far as, eating when I need to eat, sleeping when I need to sleep, but as far as going to the doctors, to the dentist, to keeping my spaces clean and whatnot, it's kind of lacking, because I'm focusing on other things other than that.
So how are you feeling? Sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
How are you feeling physically then?
Physically, I'm feeling a little exhausted, worn out, somewhat sleep deprived, but normally I do get enough sleep. It just depends on the day, and what time I have to work and, you know, what assignments are due and stuff like that. But as far as, you know, my nutrition level, I am kind of lacking on that because I don't eat the right things at the right time because I'm like, I need something in 5 minutes so I can go to point A to point B. And, you know, that's taking its still a little bit.
So are there any other health concerns that are like affecting you right now other than that?
I have a little allergy issues, but that's not really, you know, caused by her.
Yeah.
The situation dealing with her, it's more just personal.
So how are you feeling about what's happening with your mother-in-law?
It kind of, you know, depresses me a little bit. Well, you know, I'm kind of getting a little, I guess, for lack of better terms, mopey about it because, you know, seeing where she came from to where she is now is total 360, and, you know, it has to be weighing down on her. So I'm kind of, you know, having a little empathic reaction to what she's going through, that sort of thing.
So are there any other issues that are causing stress right now outside of your mother-in-law?
There's a little financial strain. I know that eventually when she, you know, passes, because she, you know, she's got a lot of other issues that might, you know, cause that to happen. I'm worried about my, you know, overwhelming debt as far as school, as far as credits and all that stuff. We have a home, which is great, because eventually we'll be able to sell it and use the equity. But it's basically a ticking clock as far as when she's going to be with us. She could be here 10, 20 years. She could be here 3 or 4. And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you're waiting for the bomb to go and you don't know when it's going to go, type thing.
So is what I'm hearing is you're getting a lot of stress or having to deal with a lot of stress with your mother-in-law because you're unsure of your future and her memory issues. So all of this is kind of, you know, this weight that's, you know, weighing you down, and you're not sure when this time bomb, is how you say, is going to go off. So, like, what do you think will happen, you know, like after you say this time bomb goes off? Like, can you? What
I think will happen, it depends on the context or when it actually goes off. If it goes off during school, like if I'm still pursuing my degree, I possibly might have to withdraw for at least 1 quarter to get, you know, a new place and to get all the funeral and get the bills paid down, stuff like that. If it happens after, it depends on my financial situation as far as if I've got a set career in social work, I'm getting a better pay grade, and the fact that we have enough equity to sell the home and we'll be paying a lower rate, so it would work out in the end if it works out. But I don't know what spectrum it's going to fall on, so it's kind of like I'm waiting on pins and needles. Even though I don't want her to go anytime soon, it's scary not knowing what's actually going to come about when it happens.
So you've talked about you, and you've talked about your mother-in-law, but you also said that you live with your husband and your mother-in-law's spouse. Can you tell me a little bit more about that family?
Well, my husband, he's a full-time daily worker at a grocery store, and my mother-in-law, she's retired as well, you know, with her spouse. She has issues like fibromyalgia, diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis, and she's pretty much my transport because I don't have a license or the ability to drive yet. A lot of procrastination on my part, but that's a long story. But, you know, she's having to juggle, you know, taking care, being a caretaker to her spouse, and also being a chauffeur to Eric and I, because he doesn't drive either, and that's another long story. But, so, she's basically kind of like the glue that's holding it together as far as the functionality of the home and my ability to get to and from work, to and from school, get to where I need to go to, you know, that sort of thing. She's more of my transportation resource right now.
So, I'm sorry for the confusion. I just want to straighten some things out. So I don't want to get this wrong.
Sure.
So your mother-in-law is the one with the memory issues?
There's 2 mothers. My husband, has 2 mother-in-laws, two moms. One is his stepmom, who's the one with memory loss and has all the really dire issues. His biological mom has issues, but they're not as dire, but they're the ones with the fibromyalgia, the rheumatoid arthritis, and the diabetes. And she's the one that chauffeurs us around and all that stuff and takes care of her spouse that's more terminal than anything.
Well, I mean, from what I hear coming from you is that you've got a pretty good social system going on with the inner workings of your family that you guys can lean on each other, and that's pretty good. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your family background. Like,
my origins, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. Born, lived in Richmond City, which is, underneath the border of Memphis and Tennessee up until I was 12 years old. I have a multicultural family as far as ethnicity goes. I have about, a few black aunts by marriage or African, whatever they prefer to be, referred to as.
yeah.
And I also have a stepfather who's part Japanese.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
I consider more my father than my actual father. But my actual father was not so great. But that's that's for another deeper conversation.
So, with all these things going on, you talked about your mother-in-law's spouse, your husband. Do you guys have any other family that's involved with what's going on with your mother-in-law?
As far as locally, we have. He has 2 brothers and a stepbrother, and the 2 brothers, one of them lives. His name's David. He lives in Sporting and has a home, but he has a ton of kids and people that reside in his home that aren't really paying their way. So he's having to take care of them. So basically, I don't get really any financial support from him, and I also don't get financial support from any of the other 2 because one lives out of state. The other one is on and off again on drugs and alcohol and doesn't really stay in one job for one length of time. And he has also a lot of other issues that impede him from work.
So you talked about how you have all this stress going on, and you kind of mentioned that you go to school and you're worried about your mother-in-law and what would happen if something happened to her while you were in the middle of your education. Can you elaborate on that for a little bit?
Well, it's my second go-around in college. I attempted about 15 years ago, and I made a vow to myself that I was going to get my degree and all this stuff, and then her health just kept depreciating, especially with her memory loss and her oxygen levels for the stepmom. And we're all living in a more expensive home because we needed a bigger space. And we did this at the last minute, and I was more wanting to have a home that we could pay for regardless if they were there or not. But we went for the easy, we got approved, this is all brand new, and we're like, oh, look at the shiny home. We got basically sucked in, I think, a little too soon. We did need the space, but I didn't need the financial strength, is what it was.
So, how do you and your husband cope with everything that's going on?
As far as coping, I know he likes his alone time. My husband is an introvert, so him just playing on video games or writing or just being with the cats. We have two cats. He likes that. Eventually he's going to want to have his own space too, and it's just him and I, because he's very to himself sometimes. But for me, I know it may not be the best thing to do in the world, but I like to go on Facebook, I like to listen to music to get my mind off things, but also for as far as coping with my husband, we designate shows that we watch together, and we try to make at least an hour or so together to spend time, depending on my schedule and his schedule. So we basically an hour of time, just him and I, we designate a day, if possible.
That's great. It sounds like everything you're saying that you guys, have some really good coping skills, the both of you, especially with everything you have going on with all these stressors. So how long have you guys all been living together, you and your mother-in-laws?
And all 4 of us together, probably since 2013, so about 5 years now.
So like you've hinted on, that, well, you've actually said, not hinted, that things get really, really stressful. So during these times when things are really just, so much that it's hard to deal with, how do you deal with it? How do you get by?
Sometimes I avoid, interaction so that I don't, I guess, project my anger onto them because of the situation. So giving them space. Other times, I set time for myself to have a long time to watch videos or things like that so that I can actually decompress from the day and actually take time to eat. I try not to, as soon as I go from work, come home right to do the homework and only eat at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, because that takes its toll on me. Because I'm waiting till the end of the night to eat. It just sits there. I'm stressed out to begin with because of other obligations I have at school and work. To do that, I'm trying to avoid doing everything in succession, I guess.
Do you feel like all this stress that's being built up is starting to impact your work and your school?
It impacts not so much my work, because when I'm in my work, I'm actually in my zone and I can actually disassociate myself from everybody else.
I get that.
And I can, it relieves a little bit of stress, because, when you kind of wash dishes or you do something that's more repetitive, you're getting in the motion, you're not thinking about that, you're just thinking about the motion. As far as school, it's more being attentive and focused in class, because a lot of times, especially if the lecture is very dry, and I'm trying to focus, and I've had all this stuff piled up, doing last minute assignments, trying to get everybody what they need at home, that sort of thing, and just interacting, I will end up dozing off a little bit in class, so I have to check myself.
So it sounds like the stress doesn't impact your work as much as what I'm hearing, but it definitely impacts your schooling. Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I take, I drink my coffee in the morning and take my donut or whatever it is. I try to get my sugar. I know it's not the healthiest coping skill, but that's what I do. As far as during that day, I try to make sure that I'm eating at the right times so that I have enough residual energy. As far as when I go home and my energy is kind of depleting, I do sometimes will take a couple of Excedrin and drink a thing of soda just to keep me awake, but sometimes that doesn't work because you're already crashing by that point.
So how is this stress with you and your mother-in-law impacting your family life?
Sometimes I have to walk on eggshells or try to figure out what to say before I say it when I'm around her, because she's already short-tempered anyway, good stepmother with the memory issues. And with her memory issues and her short temper, it's hard to know when's the right time to say something and how to say it. Like I could tell, you look pretty today. And, some person might say, oh, thank you. And the other person would say, well, what about yesterday? What about the next day? Why do I have to do right now? Didn't I look pretty before? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So does this impact you and your husband's relationship at all?
It does when I have a little altercation, or maybe verbal, nothing, physical, but it's always been we have verbal disagreements, and I'm not one to shy away from an argument, and sometimes that's, that injures me or gets me in trouble, like foot in mouth. But I tend to say what I feel when I feel it, especially if it hurts me emotionally, because I don't like to hold that in, because that compounds what I'm going through even more. So when it comes to him, though, I will vent to him about everything that I just went through with his stepmother and whatever, and he'll basically nod or barely listen, because he's afraid of confrontation. He doesn't like to hear all that, and he knows what's going on, but I like to deal with it head on. He just likes to let it go.
So how do you and from what I'm understanding from everything, it's your mother-in-law, correct? That has the memory issue. So how is your relationship with your mother-in-law, and how is this impacted?
It's a lot closer, actually, because she drives me everywhere. She vents to me about things that are going on with her and her spouse or in life because of them being elderly and going through barriers towards social services and whatnot, and medical barriers. But as far as everything else, I mean, I vent to her and I tell her things that are going on in my life, and then she gives me advice, and I try to take it in with a grain of salt, and that way we have an understanding. Because if we try to talk in the home, the stepmother, who has the memory issues, also has hearing issues, like extreme, and she can't afford to get hearing aids. So when her and I are talking, she's kind of paranoid about what we're talking about, because she's had a lot of negative things in the past with other people in her life that have said negative things about her, and she's not known about it. So she kind of gets paranoid, like we're leaving her out or we're making things up, and with her memory issues, that makes it a lot harder for us to, communicate with them at home.
Yeah, from everything I'm understanding, it's pretty difficult you dealing with your mother-in-law, and it seems like there's a lot of internal struggles going on.
Stepmother-in-law, yeah.
Sorry, stepmother-in-law,
Yeah.
with her memory issues and her hearing issues, and I commend you for, being the one, that is a support system, part of that support system for her, because not a lot of family members step up, not a lot of people step up in general, so that's very, very honorable of you to do that. Well, unfortunately, we only had a limited amount of time, and it was very nice meeting with you today. Hopefully, we can meet again and dig a little bit deeper into this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's going to be on camera when you laugh.